Hello friends, today I wanted to talk about compression, because for a long time this was something that I struggled with. I wasn't always sure when to use it, how to use it, why I was using it. I got some bad advice, so I wanted to talk about that and hopefully clear up some mistakes so you don't need to make them. So the first bit of bad advice I got was that I should compress everything, and trying to follow that advice, I found myself making a lot of mistakes. So what you want to do is before compressing something, you want to know the reason behind it. So never do anything just because you think it's the textbook thing to do. Always have an idea in your head of what you're trying to make happen. So there are two main reasons that you'd want to pull out a compressor. The first one is dynamic control, and we'll take a look at that first. Okay, so I just have this piano MIDI here. Yeah, so that didn't need very much, but now I'm going to add a lead track. Okay, so that's quite a bit more dynamic. And the first tip I'd like to say is that before applying compression, make sure that you're setting your levels, because it might be tempting to try to get that gain reduction through the compression, but you want to have your levels more reasonably matched before even reaching for that tool. And that level fits in a lot better with the piano, but as you notice, some notes are very quiet and some notes are very loud. So in this instance, we're going to use the compressor for dynamic control. And even with compression, it's still not quite where I want it to be. So another way to kind of fix this, before using a compressor even, is you can just make sure your levels are more evened out in velocities. So especially if it's MIDI, you have a lot of control that way. What you don't want is, if it's a solo like this, you don't want everything to be the same. You wouldn't want this. But you would want them a little closer, so the compressor is doing less work, and the signal coming in is a lot closer to what you want it to be already before turning on a compressor. So what you want to do too is get a makeup gain that makes it sound close to the original, so that you're not fooled by what the compressor is doing, but you have kind of a good idea of what actually is happening. Another way you may want to do it is if you're just using it on an individual sample, and it's not so much that you're trying to change the dynamics of it, but you want to change the shape of that particular sound. So you see here I have the same kick sample laid out identically, so there's not really any dynamic variation. But maybe I want to use a compressor on this kick to add a little bit more punch. Okay, so the way I have that set up is that it's emphasizing the attack of the kick. So I have a slow attack that's letting that click of the kick get in, and then I'm having the compression crush down on the rest of it. So what it does overall is emphasizes the attack. So those are really the two main ways that I use compression. So if you're a beginner and you're not doing one of those two things, I think it's safe to say usually that you can just leave the compressor off. What I can say for myself is that I have a tendency to feel like I'm doing more if I'm applying effects and processing and compression, and I almost feel like I'm lazy if I'm leaving things the way they are. And one thing I'd like to point out too is that if you're using sounds from a sample pack, it's very common that they've already been EQ'd and compressed. So unless you're trying to do something specific to change the sound of it, you can just use them exactly as they are without any additional processing. Okay, so what I have here is an example of me just having these one shots, no processing. I just entered them in manually. And especially if you do this type of writing where you just put it in as MIDI with no velocity change at all, it's very easy to get a clean mixture between them using just volume. So if I had a track like this, the only thing I would do is maybe add some reverb later on and then parallel compression to kind of tighten them all together. But as far as individual sounds, I may not even need to bring out a compressor at all. And the same is for anything you find in a sample pack. It could be a melody, a vocal, a loop, anything that you have. So I'm not saying that you should never use compression on these, but just use it with intention, because you may not even need it. So what you can do is just hear it in context of the rest of the song, and turn it on and off, and see if you like what it's doing. And what I like to do a lot is I'll just close my eyes and click it a ton of times. So now I don't know whether it's on or off, and if I have the levels matched, it won't be as obvious to me. And then I can just do that and decide whether it's helping the mix or not helping the mix. I like this one. Okay, so I do like the compression on this. But if you found doing that exercise that you don't like the version with compression, don't beat yourself up. Don't feel like you're a failure and you did compression wrong. It may be the case that you can just leave that compression off and you don't need it. Just always think about what serves the song. Alright, thanks for making it to the end, and let me know what I should do next.